Hello everyone, in our last video on how to use guitar pedals as effects in your DAW, we got a question from user Sandox Beats. Do you have a tutorial video on how to use these pedals on a dry guitar track instead of drums? Well, we actually just did some tracking for another demo that we're filming right now, and we need to do some guitar reamping for this. So I thought I would film the process and answer your question in today's video. Basically, we'll be doing the same thing as our last video, but with guitars instead of drums. One key difference from that video is that today we're going to be paying close attention to the impedance. Luckily, the Strymon Iridium, which we're going to be using today, is able to take a line level signal, which is configurable by holding the favorite foot switch while powering on the device and then turning the drive knob. So in Logic, if we have a look here, we have some guitar DIs that have been recorded into Logic with no processing. For those of you that don't know, a guitar DI is when you take the direct signal from your guitar's output into an audio interface, which is then recorded. You can then send this audio into pedals and then guitar amplifiers, which can then be recorded back into your DAW. This is really nice for recording, as you can focus more on the performance aspect of it and then tinker with sounds in a later stage. In our case, we recorded these tracks using the stock Logic amp plugins. If we have a listen to these, let's have a listen to these. This jazz example down here. They don't sound too bad, but because we have the guitar DIs, we now have options to process these in any way we want, whether it be through plugins like we have here, real amplifiers which have been mic'd up, or like today's example, digital amp simulations. In the last video, I explained in detail the type of gear that you need as well as how to set it up. If you want to learn more about this, you can check that video out. With that being said, I will do a basic recap on what you need. And first thing is the audio interface. Anyone recording audio needs one of these. To do a reamp correctly, you will need more than one set of stereo outputs. That's 2 mono outputs. So for example, this Focusrite Scarlett Solo I have here will not work. The Behringer UMC404 has more than 2 outputs, which is why we're going to be using it today. Remember, you need more than one set of stereo outputs. Now for the actual reamp gear, normally when people think of reamping, it involves getting a guitar amplifier going with a mic placed in front of the speaker. But in today's example, we're going to streamline that process a little bit by using the Strymon Iridium, which is an amp and cabinet simulator. And in my opinion, it's one of the best portable digital solutions for amp sims out there. So just like the last video, we have output 3 of the audio interface going into the input of the Iridium, and then the output of the Iridium going into input 1 of the interface. Again, if you want a more detailed explanation, please take a look at our last video. Now to take a look at our DAW. In our last video, we were using sends to go to output 3, but this time we're going to actually create an audio track with no inputs. Let's just do that here. So there's no input, and with the output going to the physical output 3 of our interface. This means that any audio that's placed into this track will be sent out of our interface and into anything that you have hooked up to output 3. In this case, it's the Strymon Iridium. I'm just going to call this track reamp send. Now we're going to need another audio track to actually record what is being processed, in this case, the Iridium. This is fairly straightforward. Basically, you just create another audio track with input 1, which is where I have the Iridium's output hooked up to, and then your output can just go to your stereo outputs. In my case, I have a master bus set up, so I'm going to send it to that bus, and I'll just name this track Iridium. Oop. Can't spell today. Iridium. Cool. So now the process is fairly simple. We just need to record the Iridium. We're going to place some audio into this reamp send track, and I'm going to do that by holding Option and dragging this region down. What this does is it duplicates this region into here. So if we mute these guitars and close all the track stacks, what will happen is this audio region here will go out of our interface, into the Iridium, into input 1, which is going to get recorded onto this track. So I'm just going to hit this low latency mode, which is a really handy feature on Logic. And then we're going to hit record, and let's hear how that sounds. Before that happens, I'll just first turn the actual pedal on. All right, so I've got the pedal turned on now, and let's hear how that sounds. I'm probably going to tinker with the sounds as we go, as we're recording, but yeah, let's give it a whirl. So now if we mute the reamp send track and solo the Iridium track, we have a listen to that. This is the that's come directly off of the Iridium. And basically, this is how you reamp guitars. The traditional way of doing it is you'd have an amplifier, get a microphone and place that in front of the speaker and record that in. Normally, a lot of people would like to add pedals to the mix as well. And for this particular example, while I'm going to be going through and doing all the reamps for all of these tracks here. We've got a couple of metal tracks here. And for that, I'm actually going to be plugging in this Crayon pedal to get a little extra gain out of that. So I'm going to go through and reamp all the guitars that we have here. And once I've done that, what I'm going to do is play you a comparison between the Logic stock plugins and then the Iridium. Okay, so I've finished the recording. Let's have a listen to these. Great, so thank you everyone for checking this out. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below. Have a lovely day.